Ethan suddenly realized that ever since that car accident, when he chose to save Emma first, I seemed to have changed. I stopped texting him constantly. I stopped caring what time he came home. When he stayed at Emma's place for days taking care of her, I didn't mind. I even kept my temporary blindness a secret from him. For a whole week at the hospital. Ma'am, here's your medication. Take these for about 3 more days, and your vision should fully recover. I took the pills inside with relief. A few days ago, I got hit by a motorcycle while trying to save a stray cat. On my way home from work, that night after taking a shower, I suddenly couldn't see anything. I panicked, flipped, and crashed into the coffee table. I couldn't get up for the longest time. I found my phone and almost called Ethan, but then I hesitated. He probably wouldn't answer if he saw my call during work hours anyway, so I called 911 instead. Thank God. The doctor said it was just temporary blindness. That would last about a week. I was so relieved. But living blind was incredibly difficult. I kept bumping into things, getting bruises everywhere. At least I knew my apartment well enough to survive, even if I got hurt daily. Just 3 more days, and I'd be able to see again. Miss Sarah, should I help you get a taxi home? Are we going straight back? My companion helped me put on sunglasses and carefully guided me. I thought for a moment, I think I'm out of water at home. I want to buy some milk, bread, and bottled water at the store. Could you please? Before I could finish, I heard a familiar voice. Sarah, what are you doing here? I instinctively looked toward the voice. Of course, I couldn't see anything, but hearing Emma's voice at the hospital meant Ethan was probably here, too. Sure enough, Ethan's cold voice followed. Didn't I tell you I'd eat at the cafeteria? Why do you keep bringing me food? This is my workplace. Can you have some boundaries? Every day. It's either bringing food or bothering me with trivial things. I really don't have the energy to deal with you. My grip tightened on the lunchbox. I wanted to explain that this wasn't food I made for Ethan. My companion had brought it from home because she saw I was having trouble with my eyes. I wanted to say, Ethan, I haven't texted you or brought you food in months. I'm trying to stay away from you, and it seems to be working. But those words stayed stuck in my throat. I knew, even if I said them, Ethan wouldn't believe me. After all these years of chasing after him, even when his mother died, and used the cruelest words to try to scare me away, I never backed down. I always followed him around like a little tail, depending on him for everything. How could someone like me easily let go of Ethan? Nobody would believe it, especially not Ethan. So he thought I'd never change. But I really have changed, Ethan. I really have. Since he misunderstood anyway, let him. I didn't want to explain. Okay, I said quietly. Before Ethan could respond, I heard Emma lightly tap him. Ethan, how can you talk like that? Emma gently scolded him, then turned to me with a soft voice. Sorry about that, Sarah. My daughter has been running a fever these past few days. So Ethan hasn't been going home after work. He's been helping me take care of her. Don't worry though. I'm just borrowing Ethan for a few days. Once my daughter gets better, I'll give him back to you. She hesitated, then continued with embarrassment, mixed with playfulness. You really don't need to worry, and you don't need to follow us here. Ethan and I really don't have anything going on. Before she could finish, Ethan interrupted impatiently enough. Why are you explaining so much to her? Come on, let me take you to get the medicine. Lily's fever broke, but it's still flu season, so we need to. As their voices faded away, I slowly loosened my grip on the lunchbox. My companion looked at me carefully. Miss Sarah, who were they? I came back to myself and smiled. Oh, just some irrelevant people. Actually, Ethan and I were childhood sweethearts. He was always the golden child everyone admired. Nobody around me studied better than Ethan. So from a young age, I loved following him around. I got used to having Ethan in every part of my life. All through college after his mother got sick and died, I stayed by his side. Maybe my persistence and companionship touched him, because that's when we got together. When Ethan asked if I wanted to be his girlfriend, I felt like I'd received heaven's blessing. Over the years, I loved sharing everything with him. Whether it was a stray cat I saw on the street, delicious bowl of noodles I ate, even when the weather was so nice that the clouds looked like a cute white cat, I'd take a picture and send it to Ethan. Ethan hardly ever replied to my messages, but I just assumed it was his personality. Actually, when we first got together, although he rarely shared things about his life with me, he did respond to most of my shares. But after Emma came back with her child following her divorce, seemed to change. He stopped responding to everything I shared. Instead, whenever he had free time, he'd spend it with Emma's daughter, Lily. He even became Lily's godfather. At first, I only knew Emma was Ethan's senior from school. Later, when I saw that Ethan's concern for Emma had gone beyond normal classmate relationships, I did some digging. Turns out back in the day, Ethan and Emma were considered the perfect couple by everyone. But for some reason, Emma suddenly went abroad and later Ethan chose to be with me. Learning this truth, I naturally had a huge fight with Ethan. In my fury, I even confronted Emma, telling her to stay away from my boyfriend and stop bothering him with everything. I still remember the look Ethan gave me then. So strange, so cold. He said, "Sarah, if you insult Emma again, we're breaking up." Immediately, we had a cold war for 3 months after that. In the end, I couldn't let go of all those years of feelings. So I gave in first. After we made up, Ethan promised we wouldn't fight anymore. He said he'd keep his distance from Emma until a month ago. That day, Ethan was driving me to work when Emma called. She said her daughter seemed to have a fever, and she couldn't get a taxi. Ethan immediately made a detour to pick them up. After picking up Emma, our car got rear-ended by a truck. Both Emma and I got injured to different degrees. She hit her chin while my foot got trapped in the passenger seat. But when the rescue team arrived, Ethan panicked and rushed Emma straight to the hospital. He didn't even look at me once when he left. That's when I knew Ethan and I were over. My companion helped me carry all the groceries home, worried about my inconvenience. I waited until I finished showering. Before leaving, I sat on the couch feeling relieved. I'd bought plenty of groceries earlier, enough to last 3 days without going out. My new job wouldn't start for another 5 days. My original flight was tomorrow, but now I'd have to change it to 3 days later. I was about to grab some bread for a quick dinner before bed, when I suddenly heard the door open. Thinking it was Ethan coming home, I stood up but immediately got knocked off balance by something, nearly falling to the ground. Before I could say anything, a child's heart-wrenching cries filled the air. I was confused when someone roughly pushed me aside. Emma's voice choked with tears and anger rang in my ears. "Sarah, what are you doing? I know you don't like us, but if you have a problem, take it out on me. How dare you bully my daughter?" Just as I was about to speak, someone grabbed my arm forcefully. "Sarah, what are you standing there for? Couldn't you move out of the way when you saw Lily coming? You're a grown adult, and Lily's just a child. Are you a child too? When will you ever change this reckless personality of yours?" "Let go," I said. My voice was quiet, flat, and devoid of the usual frantic desperation he was so accustomed to hearing. Ethan didn't let go immediately. Instead, I felt his grip tighten slightly in surprise before he slowly released me. The silence in the dark living room became heavy, broken only by Lily's sniffling and Emma's soft, rhythmic murmuring as she comforted her daughter. "Sarah, what is wrong with you?" Ethan's voice had dropped its sharp edge, replaced by a low, simmering irritation. "Why are you standing in the dark anyway? Why didn't you turn on the lights? And why are you wearing sunglasses inside the house?" "Ethan, don't be too hard on her," Emma said, her voice dripping with gentle, performative diplomacy. "I'm sure Sarah didn't mean to bump into Lily. She was probably just surprised to see us here. I should have called first, but Lily was crying for her godfather, and Ethan said we could stop by to grab some of his things." I stood perfectly still, my eyes hidden behind the dark lenses, staring into the pitch-black void. I could hear where they were standing. Ethan was directly in front of me, his familiar scent of cedar and mint drifting over, while Emma and Lily were a few feet to his right, near the shoe cabinet. "I asked you to let go, and now I'm asking you to leave," I said, my voice remaining level. "This is my apartment. The lease is in my name. I pay the rent. You do not have the right to bring guests here without my permission." A sharp intake of breath came from Ethan's direction. "Your apartment? Sarah, we've lived here together for 3 years. Half of the things in this place are mine. What is this attitude? Ever since the accident, you've been acting like a completely different person. If you're still throw a tantrum over me saving Emma first, then just say it. Don't take it out on a child." I wanted to laugh, but I didn't have the energy. He honestly believed my silence, my absence, and my sudden detachment were all part of some elaborate, petty game to get his attention. He thought I was playing hard to get, using silence as a weapon to make him feel guilty. "I am not throwing a tantrum, Ethan," I said, reaching out blindly behind me to find the edge of the console table to steady myself. My fingers brushed against the smooth wood, and I anchored my hand there. "And I don't care who you save. You can save whoever you want. But right now, I want you to leave. Both of you." "Sarah, look at me when I'm talking to you," Ethan commanded, his frustration peaking. I heard him take a step closer. "Take off those ridiculous sunglasses. Why are you acting so bizarrely?" "Ethan, maybe we should just go," Emma whispered, her voice tight with a sudden, uneasy tension. "Lily is tired. We can come back another time." "No, Emma. We're not going anywhere until she explains what this is about," Ethan said. I felt his hand reach out, his fingers grabbing the edge of my sunglasses and pulling them off my face. The cool air of the room hit my eyes. I didn't blink. I couldn't focus on his face, but I kept my gaze fixed on the general direction of his voice. There was a sudden, absolute silence in the room. Sarah? Ethan's voice lost all of its anger, replaced by a sudden, sharp note of confusion. Why? Why aren't you looking at me? Mommy, Lily mumbled, her voice muffled against Emma's shoulder. Auntie Sarah's eyes look funny. They're not moving. Sarah, look at my hand, Ethan said, his voice trembling slightly. I could hear the rustle of his sleeve as he waved his hand in front of my face. I kept my vacant gaze fixed on the space where his chest should be. I can't see your hand, Ethan. What do you mean you can't see? He stepped closer, his breathing suddenly shallow and rapid. Stop it. Stop playing games. Is this another way to get me to stay? To make me feel bad? The medicine is on the coffee table, I said quietly, pointing a finger in the general direction of the living room, though I wasn't entirely sure if I was pointing correctly. There is a paper bag from the hospital pharmacy. If you can read, you'll see what's wrong. Now, please leave. I heard Ethan's quick, heavy footsteps cross the room. The rustle of a paper bag followed, then the clinking of plastic medicine bottles. A long, suffocating silence stretched between us. Temporary, trauma-induced visual impairment. Ethan read the words aloud, his voice barely a whisper, halting and strained. Ophthalmic drops, to be taken every 8 hours. Patient, Sarah Lynn. I heard the paper bag slip from his fingers, landing softly on the carpet. When did this happen? Ethan's voice was cracked, stripped of all its previous authority. Sarah, when did this happen? A week ago, I replied. A week ago? The night of the storm. He took a step toward me, but stopped. I called you that night. You didn't answer. I was in the emergency room, I said. And then I was admitted to the ward. I didn't want to bother you. You were busy taking care of Lily. You went blind, and you didn't tell me? He sounded frantic now, his footsteps rushing back toward me. He reached out and grabbed both of my shoulders. Sarah, why didn't you call me? I'm your boyfriend. I'm the person who is supposed to be here for you. His touch felt foreign. It didn't bring the warmth or comfort it used to. It just felt like an unnecessary weight. I gently but firmly pried his hands off my shoulders. You left me in a crushed car to save Emma, I said, my voice as calm as a quiet morning. When the rescue team arrived, you didn't look back once. If my life didn't matter to you then, why would my eyesight matter to you now? That was different. Ethan pleaded, his voice rising in panic. Emma was screaming. She was bleeding from her face. I thought you were safe because you weren't making any noise. I wasn't making noise because the dashboard had collapsed onto my chest and my foot was pinned under the metal, I said. I couldn't breathe, Ethan. I watched you carry her away. And in that moment, I realized something very important. What? He whispered. I realized that I have spent 15 years of my life chasing after a man who would leave me to die if his first love sneezed, I said. I'm not angry at you anymore. I really aren't. I just finally woke up. Sarah? Emma's voice came from the doorway, soft and filled with embarrassment. I didn't know. If I had known, I would have never asked Ethan to stay with us. I'll leave. I'll take Lily and go. Yes, please do, I said, not turning toward her. And take Ethan with you. No, I'm not leaving, Ethan said immediately. Emma, take a cab. I'm staying here. Sarah needs help. She can't even see. I don't need your help, Ethan, I said, turning my head toward the sound of his voice. I have a companion who helps me. She brought me home today, and she will be back tomorrow. I have managed perfectly fine for the last 7 days without you, and I will manage for the next 3 days until my vision returns. Your companion? Who is this companion? Ethan asked, jealousy and confusion mingling in his tone. A stranger? You'd rather rely on a stranger than me? A stranger doesn't leave me in a burning car, I said. A stranger doesn't accuse me of lying when I can't see. Now, please leave. If you don't, I will call the building security or the police. I am tired, and I need to take my medication. Ethan stood frozen. I could hear his ragged breathing, the sound of his hands clenching into fists. For the first time in our entire relationship, he had no words to defend himself. He had always been the golden child, the brilliant student, the man who was always in the right. But standing in my dark living room, reading my medical diagnosis, he looked like a man who had suddenly lost his footing on a cliff. Ethan, let's go, Emma said quietly, her voice lacking its usual playful sweetness. Let's give Sarah some space. This time, Ethan didn't argue. I heard his slow, heavy footsteps follow Emma out of the apartment. The door clicked shut and the lock turned. I stood in the darkness for a long time, listening to the absolute silence of my home. My shoulders, which had been tense for a week, finally relaxed. I walked slowly toward the sofa, trailing my fingers along the wall to guide myself, and sat down. I reached for the bread on the coffee table, chewed it slowly, and then took my pills with a sip of lukewarm water. There were only 3 days left. 3 days until the darkness lifted, and 3 days until I could leave this city forever. The next morning, the silence of my apartment was broken by the sound of the doorbell. I was sitting on the sofa, listening to an audiobook. I didn't move. I knew who it was. The bell rang 3 times, paused, and then rang again, more urgently. My phone, sitting on the cushion beside me, buzzed. I swiped the screen blindly, and the text-to-speech assistant read the message aloud in its flat, electronic voice. "Sarah, please open the door. I brought breakfast from that bakery you like on 3rd Street. I also brought some fresh fruit and bottled water. Please let me in." I turned the phone face down. A few minutes later, I heard the sound of a key turning in the lock. The door opened, and the familiar scent of fresh pastries and rain drifted into the hallway. "Sarah?" Ethan's voice was cautious, almost timid. He closed the door behind him and walked into the living room. "I know you're angry, but you need to eat. I brought the blueberry scones you like." "How did you get in, Ethan?" I asked, not moving an inch. I have my key," he said. "I never gave it back." "Put the key on the kitchen counter and leave," I said. "I am changing the locks tomorrow." "Sarah, please don't be like this," he said, his footsteps coming closer. I heard the rustling of plastic bags as he set them on the table. "I stayed up all night thinking about what you said. I know I've been neglectful. I know I haven't been the partner you deserved. But 15 years, you can't just throw away 15 years of history over a mistake." "It wasn't a mistake, Ethan. It was a choice," I replied. "And it wasn't just one choice. It was a series of choices you made over the last 2 years, ever since Emma came back." "I was just trying to help her." Ethan's voice took on a desperate, pleading tone. "She was a single mother. She had no one else in the city. Her ex-husband was abusive. I felt responsible for her because of our past." "And what about your present?" I asked. "What about me?" "You felt responsible for her, so you made me invisible. When I sent you photos of the stray cat I found, you didn't reply. When I told you I got a promotion at work, you said, 'That's nice,' and immediately started talking about Lily's kindergarten application. I became a ghost in my own life, Ethan. I only existed to keep your dinner warm and clean your clothes." Ethan didn't answer. I heard him sit down on the edge of the armchair opposite me. The leather creaked under his weight. "I didn't realize," he whispered. "I thought you were okay with it. You never complained." "I did complain, Ethan. In the beginning, we fought about it constantly. Do you remember the Cold War we had for 3 months after I confronted Emma? You told me that if I ever insulted her again, we were through. You chose her feelings over my peace of mind. So, I stopped complaining. I realized that complaining only made me look hysterical in your eyes. I chose silence because it was the only way to preserve what little dignity I had left." I heard a soft, choked sound from his direction. He was crying. In the past, seeing Ethan cry would have torn my heart to pieces. I would have rushed to his side, knelt before him, and apologized for making him sad. I would have taken all the blame just to see him smile again. But now, hearing him weep, I felt absolutely nothing. It was like listening to the rain outside, a sound that existed but had no bearing on my internal state. "I'm sorry, Sarah," he choked out, his voice thick with tears. "I'm so sorry. Please just let me make it up to you. Let me stay here and take care of you until your eyes are better. I've taken a leave of absence from the hospital. I have the next 2 weeks off. I will do everything. I'll cook, I'll clean, I'll take you to your appointments." "I don't want you here, Ethan," I said. "Your presence doesn't comfort me. It just reminds me of everything I've lost. If you truly want to do something for me, leave. Let me have these last few days in peace." "These last few days," he caught the phrasing, his voice tightening with a sudden panic. "What do you mean, last few days?" "Nothing," I said, realizing I had let too much slip. "I just mean until my vision returns." He sat there for a long time, his quiet sobs gradually fading into a heavy, subdued breathing. Finally, I heard him stand up. "I'll leave the food on the table," he said quietly. "But I'm not giving up on us, Sarah. I'll come back tomorrow. Even if you don't open the door, I'll wait outside." I didn't reply. I heard his slow, lingering steps move toward the door, the sound of the key being placed on the console table, and then the click of the lock as he left. As soon as he was gone, I reached out and found my phone. I dialed a number I had memorized. "Hello, landlord?" "Yes, this is Sarah Lynn from 4B. I'd like to confirm my lease termination." "Yes, I will be leaving the keys on the kitchen counter on Friday morning." "Yes, the cleaning service has already been scheduled." "Thank you." I hung up. Next, I called my companion, the kind woman who had been helping me navigate my temporary blindness. "Miss Sarah," her warm voice answered. "Hi, Clara. Could you do me a favor? When you come tomorrow, could you help me pack my suitcases? I want to get everything ready for my move." "Of course, dear. I'll be there first thing in the morning." "Thank you, Clara." I put the phone down and leaned my head back against the sofa. For the first time in a week, the darkness didn't feel like a prison. It felt like a protective cocoon, keeping the rest of the world out while I quietly rebuilt myself in the dark. On the second day, the gray fog in my eyes began to clear. It started as a faint, watery light filtering through the window blinds. When Clara arrived in the morning, I could make out her silhouette, a short, round figure moving briskly around my living room. "Oh, Miss Sarah, your eyes look much clearer today," Clara said, her voice filled with delight as she folded my sweaters and packed them into my red suitcase. "The redness is almost gone." "Yes," I said, blinking against the sudden brightness of the room. "I can see the outline of your face now. It's still blurry, like looking through a heavy sheet of rain, but I can see." "That's wonderful news." The doctor was right, it just needed time. Clara patted my hand. "Now, what about these photo frames on the shelf? Do you want to pack them?" I looked toward the bookshelf. My vision was still too distorted to see the details of the photos, but I knew what they were. Pictures of Ethan and me at our college graduation, pictures of us on our first vacation to the coast, pictures of us laughing in the autumn leaves. "No," I said. "Leave them. The landlord can throw them away, or Ethan can have them. I don't want them." Clara looked at me with a soft, understanding gaze. She didn't ask any questions. She had been with me for a week. She had heard the phone calls, she had seen the bruises, and she had witnessed the quiet, resolute way I had dismantled my life. "Understood," she said, closing the suitcase with a sharp zip. "That's the last of the clothes. The boxes for the kitchen are ready as well." "Thank you, Clara. I don't know what I would have done without you this past week." "You would have survived, dear," Clara said gently. "Some people are like glass. They break easily when they fall. But you, Miss Sarah, you're like timber. You might bend in the storm, but you don't break." Her words warmed a part of my heart that had felt cold for a long time. After Clara left, I spent the afternoon practicing walking around the apartment without my cane. My vision was improving by the hour. By evening, I could read the labels on my medicine bottles without straining. The world was returning to me, sharp and clear, in all its vibrant colors. And with the light, the final lingering doubts in my mind vanished. That night, the doorbell rang again. I didn't answer it. But this time, Ethan didn't use his key. He knew I had changed the deadbolt that morning. Clara had helped me coordinate with a locksmith. Instead, he sat outside my door. I could hear the faint rustle of his clothes against the wood as he leaned against it. "Sarah," his voice was muffled by the thick oak of the door, but I could hear him clearly in the quiet hallway. "I know you're in there. I know you can hear me." I sat on the sofa, watching the shadows of the street lamps flicker across the ceiling. "I went to see Emma today," Ethan said. His voice was tired, hollow. "I told her we can't see each other anymore. I told her I can't be Lily's godfather. I told her that my relationship with you is the most important thing in my life, and that I've neglected it for too long." He paused, waiting for a response. There was only silence from my side. "She cried," Ethan continued, his voice trembling. "She said she understood. She apologized for coming between us. Sarah, I've cut her out. Completely. I swear to you. I will never speak to her again. Just please, open the door. Let me see your eyes. Let me know that you're okay." I looked at the closed door. A year ago, if Ethan had told me he had cut Emma out of his life, I would have cried tears of joy. I would have felt like the luckiest woman in the world, believing that my patience and love had finally won him over. But hearing those words now, I only felt a profound sense of irony. He had cut Emma out not because he suddenly realized he loved me, but because his ego couldn't handle the fact that I had stopped chasing him. He was a man who was used to being adored, used to being the center of my universe. The moment I stepped out of his orbit, he panicked. He didn't love me. He loved the way I loved him. "It's too late, Ethan," I said softly, though I knew he couldn't hear me through the door. I stood up, walked into my bedroom, and closed the door, shutting out the sound of his voice. Friday morning arrived, bright and clear. My vision had fully recovered. When I looked in the bathroom mirror, my eyes were bright and focused, the temporary blindness a thing of the past. The bruises on my body had faded to a light, yellowish green. I dressed in a simple beige trench coat, grabbed my 2 suitcases, and took a final look around the apartment. It was empty. The boxes were stacked neatly by the door, waiting for the charity truck to pick them up. The key was sitting on the kitchen counter, next to a small note that read, "Ethan, the lease is terminated. Do not look for me." I took a deep breath, feeling a sudden, immense lightness in my chest. It felt as if a heavy stone, one I had been carrying for 15 years, had finally been lifted from my shoulders. I opened the front door, pulling my suitcases behind me. As I stepped into the hallway, a figure stood up from the floor. It was Ethan. He was wearing the same clothes from 2 days ago, his hair disheveled, his eyes bloodshot and sunken. He looked like a ghost of the confident, brilliant man I had once loved. When he saw me carrying my suitcases, his eyes widened in absolute terror. "Sarah?" he gasped, taking a step toward me. What is this? Where are you going? I'm leaving, Ethan, I said, my voice calm and steady as I pulled the door shut behind me and locked it one last time. Leaving? To go where? Vacation? He reached out, trying to grab my suitcases, but I pulled them back, keeping a clear distance between us.
No.
I'm moving. I accepted a job offer in another city a month ago, before the accident. My flight is in 3 hours. A month ago? Ethan's voice cracked, his face turning pale. You planned this a month ago? Before the accident. No. I corrected him. I applied for the job a month ago, but I hadn't made up my mind. I was still holding on to the hope that we had a future. But when the truck hit us and you walked away with Emma without looking back, that's when I made my decision. I signed the contract that very night from my hospital bed. Sarah, please. Ethan fell to his knees, his hands grabbing the hem of my coat. He was weeping openly now, his body shaking with deep, violent sobs. Don't do this. I'll do anything. I'll leave the hospital. We can move to another city together. We can start over. Just don't leave me behind. I looked down at him. For 15 years, this man had been my entire world. I had studied his habits, learned his favorite meals, memorized the sound of his footsteps, and spent countless nights crying myself to sleep, wondering why I wasn't enough for him. Now, looking at him kneeling at my feet, I felt no anger, no hatred, and no satisfaction. I only felt a quiet, peaceful indifference. Get up, Ethan, I said softly. Don't do this to yourself. I can't live without you, Sarah, he sobbed, his forehead resting against my shoes. I didn't realize how much you did for me, how much you loved me, until you stopped. Please give me one more chance. Just one. The love I had for you didn't die in a single day, Ethan, I said, gently pulling my coat from his grip. It died slowly, over years of neglect. The accident was just the final blow. You can't rebuild something that has turned to dust. I don't love you anymore. And honestly, it is the most liberating feeling I have ever known. I turned away from him and began walking down the hallway toward the elevator. Sarah, Sarah, he cried out, his voice echoing in the quiet corridor, but he didn't follow me. Perhaps he finally realized that no amount of begging would bring back the girl who used to follow him like a shadow. The elevator doors opened. I stepped inside, turned around, and looked at him one last time as the doors slowly slid shut. The taxi ride to the airport was peaceful. I watched the city streets slide past the window, the tall buildings gradually giving way to open highways and wide blue skies. At the terminal, I checked my bags, went through security, and found a seat by the large glass windows of my departure gate. My phone vibrated in my pocket. I pulled it out, expecting a message from Clara or my new landlord. Instead, it was an iMessage from an unsaved number. I opened it. It was a photo of the sky. The clouds were thick and white, shaped remarkably like a small, sleeping cat, illuminated by the golden light of the morning sun. Below the photo, a message read, "The sky is beautiful today. I remember you used to love clouds like this.
I'm sorry, Sarah.
I'm so sorry for everything." I looked at the photo for a few seconds. Then I looked up through the massive glass windows of the airport terminal at the real sky. It was a brilliant, endless blue, stretching far beyond the horizon, completely free of any clouds. I looked down at my phone. I tapped the screen, deleted the message, and blocked the number. Boarding for Flight 402 to Seattle is now beginning, the gate agent announced over the loudspeaker. I stood up, adjusted my coat, and walked toward the boarding gate. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. My vision was perfectly clear, and for the first time in my life, I was walking forward into a future that belonged entirely to me.